Welcome to the second episode in a Legendarium series called Anglo-Saxons versus Vikings. In part 2, A Breeze Before the Storm, we will talk about the early years of Ethelred the Unready and how they boded ill for the future. After the murder of King Edward in 978, Ethelred's coronation took place at Kingston upon Thames on April 14, 979, organized by a reluctant Archbishop Dunstan. After Edward's murder, very likely at the hands of Ethelred's mother Ethelred, astrologers and seers attached to the new royal family learned of a red cloud in the sky, the color of fire. It vanished at the first streaks of dawn's light, and they took this as a portent of evil. All knew that 11-year-old Ethelred could not possibly govern on his own, and when the young king took the usual oath to govern England well, Dunstan addressed him in solemn warning, rebuking the murder, very likely planned by his mother, which made him king. Dunstan further prophesied that grave misfortune would soon fall upon Anglo-Saxon England. Lady Elfrith and her ally Bishop Ethelwald became the powers behind the throne and packed the court with their flunkies. After the boy king's coronation, Dunstan withdrew from court and turned his energies towards the church. He worked long hours, day and night, spent much time in prayer, and attended Mass regularly. All the while he built churches, schools, and charitable institutions for the poor. Having washed his hands of politics, he only left Canterbury 3 times, each time on church business. Like his uncle King Edwig, Ethelred should have reached his majority around the age of 15 or 16, yet both those birthdays passed with the young king still under his mother's control. Those years saw the first Viking attacks on England in more than a generation. Word quickly spread that England, the richest kingdom in Christendom, had a child king. And despite being nominally Christianized, the Vikings would not pass up a chance for plunder. In the year 980, less than 2 years after Ethelred's coronation, Viking longships appeared off the coast of Kent. They disgorged dozens of Viking warriors who put inhabitants to the sword or carried them off into slavery. The next year brought fresh attacks further west, near Dorset and Cornwall. Why did the monarchy fail to act? To be sure, the answer is uncertain, but a child king did not help matters, and the Vikings knew that. Of course, the taint of illegitimacy and regicide may have impeded royal government even further. On August 1st, 984, Bishop Ethelwald died, and Lady Elfrith lost her strongest ally on the royal council. King Ethelred could now push his mother out of government. By the year's end, she no longer attended council meetings and retired to her estates. In an act of spite to the mother who once controlled him, yet still elevated him to the throne, the young king confiscated some of her estates. He also seized some of the property gifted to the monasteries by his father, Edgar the Peaceful. Later, the young king blamed these misdeeds on those who gave him counsel during his early years, a common tactic among weak kings. Yet removing his mother from power did not stop the Viking attacks on Ethelred's kingdom. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle wrote of the year 987, "This year was the port of Watchet plundered." For the next year, 988, it noted, "This year was Goda, the Thane of Devonshire, slain, and a great number with him." The year 988 also saw the death of a man who must have reminded many of better days. Even in old age, Archbishop Dunstan still taught boys in the cathedral school, delighting them with tales about the old days. On Ascension Day 988, a vision of angels told him that he had but 3 days to live, according to his hagiography. Nonetheless, Dunstan pontificated at Mass and preached 3 times to the people, once at the Gospel, a second time at the Benediction, and a third time after the Agnus Dei. In this last address, he announced his impending death and bade the people farewell. That afternoon, he chose the spot for his tomb, then took to his bed. His strength failed rapidly, and on the morning of May 19th, after singing hymns, he received extreme unction and holy viaticum, then expired as he uttered words of thanksgiving. He hath made a remembrance of his wonderful works, being a merciful and gracious Lord. He hath given food to them that fear him. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle lamented the death of the archbishop by writing, "Dunstan, the holy archbishop, departed this life and sought a heavenly one." Along with Saint Dunstan, the critics of Ethelred the Unready also found a martyr. For the rest of Ethelred's rule, his murdered half-brother Edward became a rallying point for dissent. Ethelred never really won loyalty from his subjects, including the all-important clergy, and a hostile church transformed King Edward into a royal martyr. A year after Edward's death, the men who disinterred him reported that his remains remained intact and free of rot, a miracle. When the church buried him again, they did so with pomp and pageantry. Priests thundered from pulpits against the feckless royal government and came to see Edward the Martyr as the great English hope snuffed out too soon. Indeed, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle wrote of Edward, "Men murdered him, but God exalted him. In life he was an earthly king. After death he is now a heavenly saint." That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.